Right then, this is the lift adventure in Prague in the Czech Republic. Let's start off with a really nice old lift, which is an old transporter lift in a hospital. Let's ride it. These doors don't actually matter. Oh no, they do matter. That door has safety, but the other one doesn't. Right. No, maybe not. And now. Okay, so let's open this door. Oh, hold on, that one opens slightly. Hold on. Yes, it's just the right hand door. Oh. Okay, that's dodgy. Dodgy contact somewhere. Very dodgy contact. Try once more. So hold right door shut, open the left door. Still going. Still going. Ah. Yes, I've got that. Door 7. This has got very dodgy contact, so I had to hold this door shut with my knee, but only that door has to be shut, this one doesn't. So then, let's explore Prague and let's find some interesting things. Now, while most tourists when they go to Prague go to the Prague Old Town, which looks like this. It looks okay, but it's not really what I'm interested in. I'm more interested in my own stuff, such as really nice old lifts, and also one other thing I find interesting is old stuff from the Soviet era, because I find that era and all of the sort of brutalist communist look very interesting. But just to be very clear, this is not a political statement. I do not support Russia, nor do I support their war criminal. This is when I say I find Soviet stuff interesting. I'm talking about finding old relics in the past interesting. I'm not talking about it in a political thing of what's going on at the moment. Now, the Czech Republic was never part of the Soviet Union, but they were under the Soviet influence and they were behind the Iron Curtain. But in the modern day, most of the Soviet stuff there was has been got rid of, because most people here do not like that sort of communist look, and it all gets very heavily modernised very quickly. So there's very few remaining relics to take a look at. But one most noticeable Soviet thing you'll come across is the old Soviet escalators on the metro system. These are actually very old-fashioned looking, very nice looking, and also really fast. Faster than any other type of escalator I know of. You would never get escalators this quick in England. When you step onto it, you really feel it, because it really goes quickly. Now, there's not many of these escalators surviving, as most of them have been replaced, and all of the replacements are much slower. For example, this here is the deepest metro station on the Prague Metro. It is very deep. Notice how long this escalator is. This is a very interesting deep station. But as the escalator is replaced, it doesn't go as quick, so it does take quite a long time to get down to this deep station. Now, down at the lower level of the metro station, you can see all of these metro stations are all the standard Soviet designs. Because there were certain designs of metro stations. There was about 5 designs or so of different metro stations, and you could pick one of those designs when you were building them. So they're all to a set build type, and a few of the stations are of this design. We've got the escalators in the middle, then the metro tunnels either side. And while you can see the structure of the metro station is to that Soviet design, it does not have all the chandeliers and People's Palace style thing compared with Ukraine. And sadly, all of the old Metrowagenmarsch trains have been modernised. Most of them have had their motors replaced, but every now and then you'll find individual carriages on these trains still with the original motors. Usually just one motor within the whole train that's still original. And I managed to find one of those trains, so let's go on it and take a listen to the old motors.
příští stanice Flora.
Talking about finding Soviet stuff in Prague, there really isn't much else. There are lots of communist era tower blocks, but these weren't really the full Soviet classic blocks that I'm interested in. They're a bit more plain, these ones. Plus they're all really heavily modernised and done up, so they've lost that sort of look to them that I find interesting. But there is one thing, not in Prague, but in some of the little towns around it, which is so Soviet, I was not expecting this. Considering this is Czech Republic, which is not that much of a Soviet place, I did not expect to hear this. The most Soviet thing I've ever heard on my travels. Take a listen to this. This is a public announcement system. Speakers around the street play some very communist sounding music before giving announcements about quite mundane stuff. Take a listen. What's this about? Why?
We always do this before the announcements.
And if we take a look in some of these older tower blocks, sadly the lifts have all been replaced. This particular block, the lifts have been replaced with EcoDisc MRLs. I wonder if there's any old equipment still left in the motor room. Sadly the motor room was locked and we couldn't get in it. There must be some old equipment in that motor room. Yeah. I've actually patched in the holes. And now let's take a look at some more recent tower blocks. Not modern ones, but just a bit more recent than these ones. And these have Schindler smart lifts, including a glass Schindler smart. So a nice glass lift, we've got to go and surf it. But let's change the switching frequency down from its default 8 kHz to 1 kHz to make the lift sound like a train. Switching frequency. And now to the next tower block. This one does not have a glass lift. It exactly fits the shaft, this thing. It exactly fits. Look how close it is to the edge of the shaft. That's crazy. I've never seen one that close. So then, now we go along to a modern shopping centre and along to the lifts here, which are some glass lifts. These are Otis Gen 2 lifts. I'm not sure if they were originally installed as Gen 2 or this is an older lift that got modernised, which I think is the latter. Now, this shopping centre has actually had the initiative to do something correct, something that most places get wrong. Let's take a look at the cabling. Notice the Gen 2 belt cables are in the middle of the lift, rather than at the sides where they normally are. If we take a look at a lift motor, notice the motor is sitting on top the supportive metal beams. This is how things should be done. And most places don't, because the default option nowadays of lifts is MRLs, and the motor is on the lift tracks. It works, there's lots of lifts like that, but it's not as good as having a motor properly supported. So when there is a situation where the motor can sit properly on top of beam nicely like this, then that option should always be the preference over an MRL. Yet so often it's not. Many places with motorhomes have MRLs now, not even using a motorhome, and that's something that makes me sick. But at least this shopping centre has actually done it correct. But now I've done it, it really now shows up how pathetically small the Gen 2 motor is. And one other thing in this shopping centre which is very nice is that the fast food restaurant area is actually a tap to fill up water bottles. Now in England, fast food places which would otherwise be cheap often then try and rip you off on overpriced drinks. But it's just so nice you can literally just fill up free water here. So talking about food, let's take a look at the price of food in a supermarket. All of this food here came from a penny supermarket, which seems to be even cheaper than Lidl. All of this here came to just £6. That is a lot of food for £6. That is pretty cheap. So then, let's now take a look at railways in the Czech Republic. And one thing I find very interesting is these very narrow platforms. I find these stations fascinating and so strange looking to me because these platforms are tiny. And if it compares to where there's a train in the platform, you can see how small this platform is compared to the train. And the train, oh shit, it's a Viva! Probably the Czech Railways not so good decision to allow a Viva to run. Let's now take a look at another part of the Czech Railways. Here there is a railway track in between two lanes of road traffic on a bridge. This looks like a tramway. You'd expect to see a little tram running down this, but this is actually a heavy freight line. Big freight trains run down this track either side of the cars and there's no fences. That is very weird. Let's climb the signal. Now we go along to the next lift. This is in a 21 floor tower and it is a Schindler 3300 Plus. A very under-spec lift for this number of floors. surf it. And now go along to what looks like some very posh Schindler lifts with destination dispatch. But it turns out these are just cheap 3300s. Very disappointing as the setup of these lifts on the outside looks so posh.
-1, výtah A.
No, 3300 plus.
Patro -4.
Yeah, it's got tram wheels. And now let's go along to a hospital. And the first lift here is, oh dear, a German Smittenson lift. Oh dear, it's Smittenson. Come on. Weird. 0.1 litre a second or even less. Yeah, I love the speed of this thing. And now to an Otis lift. That's right, I guess. Otis. Can you press fan? No, 7. So then, back at the airport, I was very disappointed to see this sign. It's things you can't take on the plane. And it says, no bombs? What? But I always carry a bomb with me wherever I go. What am I going to do now? And finally, let's do a revisit to the hotel funicular. A funicular that changes angle as it goes up the track. And as the funicular changes angle, the way it's designed, the funicular cab still stays level. It's a very interesting funicular. Plus, it's got intelligent levelling, which is so rare for funiculars to have intelligent levelling. Usually funiculars have absolutely crap levelling, so it's so nice to see this is a really well designed funicular. Chyba tylko to.